GetUp, that activist group backed by radical unions, raised $13 million over the year. And when it came to the election, though, it seems it blew the lot, almost the lot at least. It sent 9,000 members to fight against the Liberals, Conservatives, the ones that hated the most, you know, Peter Dutton, Greg Hunt, Nicole Flynn, Christian Porter, Tony Abbott and Josh Frydenberg. I mean, even Treasurer Josh Frydenberg. People claimed it was somehow stopping Australia from spending even more money on global warming schemes. And GetUp was so sure that it would win. But all that money, all those 9,000 volunteers, all of those MPs that thought it could kick out of Parliament, it got just one of them, Tony Abbott, and the Liberals still rule. GetUp boss Paul Oosting today admitted that Australians might, in fact, tell a pollster, of course they're right on board with global warming, go GetUp. But in the privacy of the ballot box, a very different story.
On the issue of climate change in particular, we have seen reflected in the polls that the majority of Australians want to see the transition to renewables and so forth, but that's not, in this case, been reflected in what happened when they got inside the polling booth.
Joining me is the panel, Liberal Senator James Paterson and Michael Danby, who retired at this election after 21 years as a Labor member. Congratulations.
Thanks.
What should we learn from GetUp's failure, Michael?
The same as with Greenpeace, unelected bodies that sort of get involved in politics have a very mixed record of success. I mean, they expended such effort to get rid of Peter Dutton, didn't succeed. They were marginally successful with Prime Minister Abbott. I would prefer, and I think James would probably be the same, that if people want to get involved in politics, join a political party. You know, be accountable. Share your views with other people.
Oh, yeah, but there's a grassroots.
Work it through the system.
The grassroots is grassroots. Is there anything wrong with GetUp trying it? But the whole point is here, I think, they let vanity get in their way, the headlines. So they went for people largely in safer seats and had minimal effect.
Well, there's no question that they had a massive overreach in this campaign, Andrew, when they went after people like Greg Hunt in Flinders, who's only had a 2% swing against him. They went after Kevin Andrews in Menzies, who at last count I saw has a 0% swing against him. They even launched a special activist group called Colour Code in an attempt to brand Kevin as a racist, and that was spectacularly unsuccessful. They targeted Andrew Hastie, they targeted Michael Sukkar, they targeted a whole lot of people.
I forgot them, yeah, I forgot them.
And I mean, you know, as you mentioned, Peter Dutton's had a swing to him despite everything they've thrown at him. So I think it shows that the preoccupations of the activist class are not shared by the majority of Australian people. The things that get them up and fired, get them out of bed in the morning, are just not the things that most Australians concern
Haven't we
themselves
learned
with.
that from the election? I mean,
Yeah, but
really.
that's what I was going to bring it back to, Michael, because what does this say about Labor? Labor got right on board this stuff, and I think they let themselves get spooked by GetUp campaigns, particularly against the Adani coal mine. What do you think Labor should now conclude?
Well, specifically with Adani, they should stick to Bill's formulation that if it stacks up environmentally and economically, it should go ahead.
What's it to you that whether it stacks up economically? It's a private investment.
Well, I mean, if there's no finance for it from the company...
It's not your business.
Well, it can't go ahead then if it doesn't...
Well, it's up to them.
All right. I accept your insistence that it's a private company, but the point is that we have to really consider the issues of employment and working people as seriously as we do the issues that motivate doctors' wives. We can't just be a party of the environment. We can't just be a party concerned with the issues that are served up to you by GetUp. You must be able to say no to these people. Yes, the environment is an important issue. All of us are opposed to pollution, but we must consider people in North Queensland and Central Queensland who don't have a job.
Can you give me a for instance, because you actually backed Bill Shorten's formulation of Adani, where would the difference be in how you think Labor should do it?
Well, I think now that the environmental limitations have been passed by the government, the federal government, I think the Queensland government should reconsider blocking the whole project because of
The black-throated finch.
I thought it was the yellow bird of paradise, but anyhow, it was whatever colour it is. These formulations seem to be a bit over the top, and I think that the project should go ahead if the company has the finances, as you assure me they do, to go ahead with it.
No, it's just their business. You'll never eat lunch in a GetUp joint again. But what do you think the Liberals should learn from this climate election?
Well, as you say, Andrew, this is supposed to be the climate election, and if it's the climate election, then the Australian people have made a choice for a very sensible, modest, measured approach to tackling climate change, as opposed to an extreme one that puts Australia out of the step of the rest of the world and taking radical action that goes much further than most other countries are willing to. Australians do care about the environment, but they're not willing to make a sacrifice on the environmental altar at the expense of their jobs and their financial security, and Queensland has spoke loud and clear on that more than any other state.
Now, one problem at the moment that the government is now facing, it's got to go back to work, obviously, is the economy seems to be slowing, rising unemployment. The Reserve Bank governor today said the economy needed some kind of stimulus so that the bank would at least now, or the Reserve Bank will now look at this next meeting at cutting interest rates even further from the emergency lows of the moment. Here's the governor.
A lower cash rate would help support employment growth, and it would bring forward the time when inflation is consistent with the target. Given this assessment, at our meeting in 2 weeks' time, we will consider the case for lower interest rates.
How much trouble do you think we're in?
I think it's too early to say that the economy is in trouble, but there certainly are global economic headwinds which will impact on Australia, and the falling property market in recent years is one aspect of that. I mean, if it is true that we do have some softness in the economy, then it is the perfect time for personal income tax cuts, and lucky as it is, we had a significant program of tax cuts in the budget, which we're now going to seek to legislate as soon as possible, and that will start flowing through to households from the 1st of July if we're successful in getting through the
Except, of
Parliament.
course, some of the tax cuts can't be, because Parliament won't be sitting, it seems now, until after the financial year starts, when the full measure of the tax rebate, or whatever it's called, is supposed to kick in at the start. The government can't get it done. But retrospectively it can, but not from the start.
And that's because the whole new Senate can't be assembled until
It's actually the return of the writs for the House of Representatives. The Senate's a continuing body. It could meet tomorrow if it was called to do so. It's that the House of Representatives writs hadn't been returned yet. I haven't lost hope yet on that, Andrew. I think there's still a possibility it will be returned before June, and we will be able to legislate them before the end of financial year. But it's not the end of the world. If we do have to convene in early July in order to backdate it, workers will still get the tax cuts that we're paying for.
Interestingly, the bank's share price have gone up tremendously since our mob were defeated, and hopefully that will mean one collateral benefit to the Australian people, and that is that they start lending to people again, because that's been part of the problem with the economy.
That's a big concession to make. Everything is looking a little better now that you're.
Well, I'm not saying it's better because of it, but I'm saying that the banks have been holding back on credit to a lot of people in small business and housing.
Michael, since you're throwing caution to the wind and saying pass Adani and all that kind of stuff, Bowen versus Albo. Now, you were of the right faction, Bowen's of the right faction, except, of course, he was behind some of the tax policies that caused you so much strife. Who would you, now that you don't care, who would you back in this in this contest?
I do care. I think they're both capable people. I think Chris's policies, which he said very much were his policies and that he crafted them, have damaged him. And the ironic thing is that a man of the left, who seemed to stand aside from it all, as you've noticed, who talked about infrastructure a lot, that was his area, seems to, be out there. Now maybe he is like President Nixon with the
China.
Vietnamese. Yeah.
Correct.
They always thought that they could make peace with him more than they could with a left-wing Democrat. Maybe... it
was like Hawke, the union leader, could tame the unions when he became Prime Minister.
Well, maybe Anthony can sort of make that zag to the centre, and he can carry it out because he has control of the activist numbers.
I suspect you're right. Just quickly before we go, one theory about why the polls didn't see this Liberal win coming is the theory of the Conservative or shy voter, shy voter, scared about all this bullying from the left at the moment. Now, we saw one activist, of course, throw an egg at the Prime Minister during the campaign, and overnight, Another leftist threw a milkshake over Nigel Farage, the leader of the new Brexit party in Britain that is leading the polls for Thursday's European election. The shy Conservative has got a lot to be shy about at the moment.
There's been two fascinating articles published in the last 24 hours, Andrew, by young women, one on Mamamia and one in The Age, effectively outing themselves as secret Liberals and confessing their shame and secret shame of having voted Liberal on the weekend.
In Mamamia?
It's telling that these people feel that it is a revelation to admit that they are Liberals, and this is a shocking thing because I imagine in their social circles that is not the common thing, and those who confess to those kind of views in those social circles are punished for it. And I think it is pretty sick that in this modern world that we can't be free and open about our views, particularly if we're on the centre-right of the political spectrum. It's a worrying thing about politics that we have to go in the ballot box and secretly express our political views that we don't feel we can express among our friends and colleagues.
There you go. Look,
and
I'm
even if you're from the
time,
social democratic right, you're deplatformed by the ABC in Fairfax.
That's true too. Michael Danby, James Paterson, thank you both so much for your time. More after the break.